Hi. For a while there I wasn't sure whether I existed because it did seem like I haven't posted here for a long time. It's only been about a week or so since the Spotlight episode, but then 2 weeks since the vlog, so I'll do another Spotlight episode probably next week. This week has just gotten away from me. I actually haven't had much of a chance to get out into the workshop, so as a result I don't have much of a status update for things going on in Paul's workshop. So in the general Paul Wood Night world, a few things to report on, I suppose. There were rumours of Canon announcing a new camera that definitely on paper looked like it was going to be my next camera, and the Wood Night would enter the world of 4K. Then Canon announced the camera, and unfortunately, just like that, it was a no-go for me. The camera in question is the Canon M50, which is a interchangeable lens mirrorless camera, so similar to a DSLR in its capabilities, better in theory than some other mirrorless cameras because it's got that big APS-C size sensor, so a bigger sensor than the Panasonic G7 and other Micro Four Thirds cameras, meaning theoretically better in light and color and blah blah blah. But then Canon decided to put a 1:6 crop factor on top of a 1.6 times crop factor on the 4K video. So a 10mm lens gets multiplied by 1.6, so 16mm, and then that gets multiplied again when you're in 4K mode. And basically for a workshop environment that gets a little bit difficult to use, so that was quite disappointing. I think I mentioned that we recently got a 3D printer. I know I haven't explored that in great detail, but I think I have at least mentioned it. Regardless, if I haven't, we recently got a 3D printer from Aldi, my wife did, for printing minis and things like that. I'm yet to come across a lot of compelling uses for a 3D printer in a workshop environment. So if you've got a 3D printer and you know of a few good things to print for the workshop, let me know. So far the most compelling are these painter's pyramids. I have mentioned before that I have painter's pyramids, they're the proper ones, but I don't know where I bought them. I thought it was Bunnings, but nowhere seems to stock it in the country anymore. So these are a much better alternative because I can print as many as I like. So I really enjoyed my most recent project. The build process was a bit longer than I wanted it to be, but I did enjoy it. I'm quite happy with the results and quite happy with the video as well. With the video though, I am going to do a follow-up episode, hoping by Sunday, on alternative ways to make this sawtooth mechanism. One way that springs to mind is using a template and a guide bushing in a router, and that'll make it much quicker and much more consistent. Another way is not using the saw teeth at all, but using other shapes. So there's a few where you just drill a hole and then split it down the middle. I'll explore those in that episode. However, that brings me to my next point. I kind of could have done all of that in one build series, and there were other parts of that video that I could have expanded on. I am not rushing into, but I'm thinking about something like the Wood Night Guild. It'd be loosely modelled off the Wood Whisperer Guild, and if you're not familiar with that, you pay X amount of money, you get access to a plan or a project. That project will contain many videos, access to the plans, access to more discussion around, in this case, Mark Spagnolo from the Whisperer Guild, and it is really good. So I've purchased a few projects from that. I actually haven't built any of them, but I've learned a lot along the way. The major one we bought it for, as a 3-pack, was the gaming dining table. And that's a good example of what I want to do. In that, I think there's like, I want to say 15 videos or so, and the total run time's about 3 hours. It's very in-depth, and you're not left wondering why a certain thing is done one way or alternative ways to do it. So again, the saw teeth mechanism is a good example. I just did that in that video. I didn't explain why I did it that way, and I didn't explain alternative ways if you don't have a bandsaw to do it or whatever. To me, that's not something that can necessarily work on YouTube. No one's going to watch a 20-part series on YouTube to build a cabinet, and from my point of view, it's not very economical. It took me probably 2 solid days of editing to get that video done. And that was just 20 minutes. You can imagine a much longer, more detailed build series would take a lot longer. So I'm contemplating the concept of the Wood Night Guild. Not every project, but certain projects. I've got a set of dining chairs that we're looking at doing in the nearish future, which might make a good candidate for that. My videos wouldn't be as in-depth as the Wood Whisperer ones, and subsequently the prices would also be priced differently. A good example is Matt Cremona, fantastic series on the highboy he's just finished building. It's also 10 hours long. I'm not going to produce 10 hours of video for that sort of thing. A lot of what I do perhaps isn't that level, well, no, definitely isn't that level of complexity, but there are some things I would like to expand on. So if you think that is something that is a good idea, let me know. I'm not committed to the idea just yet, but it is something I'm thinking about. So the only thing I did actually get to do in the workshop this week was start on this sculpted triptych. So this will be, well, this is 1 out of 3 panels, and I'll work more on the video for that today. That's going to be coated in black wood wax, the Osmo finish, have LEDs at the back. It started as a quite simple small project, sort of between projects project, and then my wife got involved, and then the scope has just crept and grown bigger and bigger. As a result, it will be a better project, but it's certainly more complex than I had when I first penned the idea type thing. Later today, I'll also be recording an episode on WTF is Jarrah. So if that's something you're interested in, that should be out sometime this or next week on my other channel. That's all for today and this week. Thanks for watching.